The construction industry is not particularly diverse, and I'm proud of what I've achieved in this industry as a woman. As you know, I've got a reputation. I'm the person you call when a construction project is in trouble. I will never force somebody to do something that I will not do myself. I've proven this on many occasions, and some pretty awful occasions, to be fair, where I've dug in when I didn't expect anybody else to. Often in those situations, it's been when I wasn't particularly respected because I was judged. One situation because I was white, many situations because I've been female, and many situations because at one point I was the boss's daughter. But each one of those situations where I was doubted and judged, and in some instances abused, there's no softer way of saying it.
Welcome to Taking the Con Out of Construction, the straight-talking show that's changing the industry, one episode at a time. Small mistakes can cost big money, and even more in time. But a small investment in listening to this episode could help you avoid disputes, delays, and costly pitfalls, while giving you the know-how to stop problems before they start. Let's turn complexity into clarity and take the con out of construction.
Welcome back to Taking the Con Out of Construction. When most people hear diversity, they immediately think about differences in gender, background, or culture, and that can sometimes make any conversation feel loaded or personal. But diversity can mean so much more than that. It can also be about the way we think, lead, and approach challenges. Michelle, when it comes to construction, how do you interpret diversity in leadership, especially the kind of diverse thinking that helps teams and projects thrive?
Diversity in construction has been on my mind lately. I had a conversation with a very influential woman recently about the work I'm doing for women in construction. And she said, why just stop at women? Why not go for full diversity? I'm going to touch on it within this episode because it is important, but it's more about thinking differently rather than being anything to do with DIE, because I don't personally feel I'm qualified to discuss that. Being a female in construction, oh my God, of course, I'm an expert in that. I've been doing it my entire life. I've been in female since the day I was born, and I will be female to the day I die, and no doubt probably still working on construction sites. But diverse thinking. I don't know whether you as a listener are aware, but I am clinically diagnosed with bipolar affective disorder, type 2, although I'm pretty sure I'm type 1. ADHD, again, clinically diagnosed, complex PTSD, and a bunch of other things. I joke about it, even though it's not funny, that I actually have more qualifications and letters after my name that I have mental health conditions, which is great. And something that happened in recent years, because I am a charter member of CIOB. I'm also an associate of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. I do have a BSc, a HND, and also a Bachelor of Honours. Oh, and a Law HND. There's a few qualifications in the mix, although it's funny how I don't ever need to express my qualifications when it comes to my professionalism. But when I talk about diversity, I feel like I need to express my qualifications of my clinical assessment. So I have been assessed by professionals, and I've had a lot of help when it comes to my mental diversity. And I'm not going to sit here and spare about how ADHD is my superpower and all that crap that the narrative is going at the moment. I'm really anti anything to do with ADHD, to be honest, because it has changed the narrative. There are many traits within an ADHD profile that most people can relate to, the ordinary person can relate to. And it does feel very much like ADHD has become a status and it's popular. And it's great that people are accepting ADHD and other mental health conditions. It's very difficult for me to understand what part of me is ADHD and what part is bipolar, and actually, to be fair, what I'm even feeling and thinking on any given day of the week because of the way that bipolar works. I could be hyper as I can. I want to spend more money than I can ever imagine earning just because it's Wednesday. And on the flip side of it, I can just want to curl up, get into bed and never wake up just because it's Wednesday. And that's tough. I've had to manage that with a number of years. I wasn't diagnosed till I was 30, but this isn't about me and my mental health. It is very difficult when you do have ADHD and you're talking to people that have not been diagnosed with ADHD. It doesn't mean they don't have it, but anyone who does have ADHD, it's not something you would wish on your worst enemy. Some people find peace and calm and restoration of themselves in medication. I didn't. And that's probably because I've got other issues to go with it. I'm very diverse in the way that I think, that I don't like to be slowed down. That's what medication tends to do. It also nearly killed me, but again, that's another story. I feel like because of the conversation that I'm about to have and the topic we're discussing, that I need to give you my qualifications, that I am able to speak in this way because I know diversity in a number of different ways. And the construction industry is not particularly diverse. And I'm proud of what I've achieved in this industry as a woman, as a mother, as someone that has a lot of, let's say, not the most pleasant life experiences, that's had to go through a lot of therapy, but has actually thrived. My entire adult life has been about surviving, but I took it a step further. I didn't just survive, I thrived. I've never been seen as a victim. I've wallowed in victim mentality for a little bit and then given myself a wobble, looked in the mirror, straightened my crown and carried on and thought, I know who the fuck I am, and started acting like it. There's been many people on this planet, especially on a personal level, that have tried to destroy me. And as tough as it is, my response to that is to thrive and to thrive as good as I bloody well can. And that's how I've brought my children up, or my younger ones will know that. They're only 6 at the moment, but the eldest one has 100% got that message loud and clear. They've got a bit of confidence creating a full-grown adult that's a decent human being who is female, and got her through some pretty difficult life circumstances that we've both gone through in the last 20 years. And as I mentioned recently, my graduation ceremony with the CIOB, the 2 representatives of the CIOB were both female, and their speeches have absolutely ignited a spark about supporting women and speaking out and having the confidence to do so. Because the beauty about my message in the construction space is, 1, I'm different. 2, I'm very experienced. I grew up in the construction industry. I first walked on a building site when I was 3. No names mentioned, but Daddy dearest. And health and safety was different back then. And cut me in half, and I'm construction through and through. I've tried leaving the industry a number of times, and yeah, I always come back because this is where I belong and I love it. And I'm here to change it. And one of the ways that I believe that we should change the industry is getting it up with the times. A lot of the industry that's back in the 1990s, let alone the 2000s, let alone 2026. And the work I'm doing with H Squared Construction, the work I'm doing with this podcast is to educate and empower. There is another way. Things have changed, diversity has changed, but what hasn't changed is the way that the construction industry looks at it and accepts it. So I've mentioned in the last podcast about women and the fact that mental health in the industry is difficult, primarily because there's a lot of white men, I think, and the fact that they've got this toxic masculinity and men don't talk is definitely improving. And there's some incredible charities out there working on supporting men with their mental health, but it's not enough. And I'm not saying the answer is more women in construction, but it's definitely going to have a massive impact. But also just more diversity in construction in general. It's very male dominated, and it's very white male dominated. Not that there's anything wrong with white men, but it's not a true reflection of the industry as a whole. Now, what is amazing is that I remember 10 or 15 years ago when we had a big influx of Eastern European workers. Now, there were some issues at the beginning, and for valid reason. People were coming in without the UK education or qualifications. And when it comes to gas electrics and water, that was a problem at the beginning because our systems are just not the same. But actually, the amount of people that then retrained, re-employed, we had an influx of labour, which, to be fair, we lost a lot of it in COVID. A lot of people went back and some people didn't return. There is definitely a skill shortage. I love working with Eastern Europeans. They are hard grafters. There's a company that I used to use, and they'd have humpers, and these guys were huge, and they would carry 3 or 4 fireboards up the stairs at one time. That's a serious amount of weight. They were like bodybuilders. They weren't cheap. They were paid exactly what they deserved. They were amazing. And the British workforce got a bit of a kick up the backside because, to be perfectly honest with you, so many of them would get on site, my husband included. They're far ass about for half an hour. They're supposed to be on site, on the tools, actually working at 8 o'clock. They might be on site, but they'll have a coffee, they'll have a cup of tea, they'll have a cigarette, they'll have a chin wag, they'll get their boots on. And by the time they actually start doing any work, it's 8:30, sometimes 9 o'clock. Next minute, they're stopping for a tea break and a cup of tea and another fag. Then you've got lunch break. And I know for my husband's on day works because he rings me incessantly. When he's on price, I hardly hear from him. And that's one of the problems. They're never productive and they're expensive for anybody. Nobody really wins. And actually, the guys on site don't like being on day works. It demotivates them because they can earn a lot more money on price. The fact about diversity and looking at things differently, I do find as a female, and this is the things that I've really been honing in on, how am I different? Because the programs I'm setting up for women in construction through Construction Alchemy are not just aimed at working with women. I've been doing mentoring with women for some time. and it's going really well. And the results I've got are amazing. And I absolutely love it. But there's a much bigger picture here. And actually, it's not me driving that. It's the other people in the industry that see how badly this industry needs it, that are pushing me and supporting me to take this next step. So programs that I'm writing and I'm now delivering to bigger organizations is much more aimed at organizations supporting diversity and diverse thinking, because the way women and men think are very different. And I think one of the successes that I've had throughout my career is the way that I deliver messages. I remember working for a female. I actually thought me and her were going to be a huge team, and I was really disappointed that we weren't. But there were some issues there. I don't know what part of it I played. I don't believe that I was totally innocent, because I don't think anyone truly is. But she employed me, she interviewed me, she's the one that offered me the job, and she had long-term goals with this particular company. And she was talking about her being the commercial director and me being the commercial manager, but she got very frustrated with me during a meeting because I was trying to deliver what she wanted to achieve. What I didn't understand is she wanted to do that delivery. And when I achieved it for her, she took it in a different way, and she was offended by it and got very frustrated by it. And I will never forget the conversation we had. And I've had this conversation with many people since. Sometimes it's not the message that you're delivering, it's the way that you deliver it. When you're communicating, the responsibility of that effective communication is on the person doing the communicating, not the person they're communicating to. So if I say something to the people I'm working with, and I often say, does that make sense? Okay, that doesn't make sense. I want to, yes, get it. And then when I say, explain it back to me. And when they can explain it back to me, I know they've understood it. So there is a two-way street when it comes to communication. And this is often missed in a lot of industries, especially in the construction industry. Many times I've sat in a meeting, this is what we're going to do, and the guy has gone before we've even checked to see if the message has been delivered. Because it's quite common in the industry, especially in a very male-dominated industry and environment. People don't necessarily talk up because there's that fear of looking stupid or egos and this whole masculine toxicity. Whereas when a woman's delivering the message, do you understand that? Yeah. I suppose it's the intuition. You look at the faces, you know who's clocked it, who's not listening, who's really confused, and who's having a mild panic. And quite actively, I go, can I speak to you? Can I speak to you? Or I'll send a text message or whatever. Regardless of the scenario, you need to understand who your audience are and how they respond. Some people like to give a bravado. Some people don't like speaking in public. Other people like to be centre of attention. One's a class joker, whatever it may be. You remember when you were at school and you had all those different personalities? A building site is no different. They're just older and sometimes wiser, sometimes not. A lot of them are very professional in their field, but maturity-wise, they're still mucking about like they were at class. And my husband is one of the world's worst. The things that he would get up to and come back with and how people would get him back, I'm just like, what do you expect? Diverse thinking is about the way that you communicate, the way that you set policies, the way you implement those policies, and actually the way that you think as a leader, because you've got different types of people. Your drive and your passions are different to somebody else's. Some people are all about the climb. As a well-known song, it's all about the climb. Because it's about that success. They drive on that success, that feeling, that sense of accomplishment. And they're at the top of the mountain. They've got the amazing view. They haven't even bothered to stop, turn around and look at it. Whereas you've got other people that will climb a mountain over a 10-year period. We're talking hypothetically. And they're all about a couple of steps, having a look, enjoying, being present, taking in the atmosphere, looking at every aspect of what they're doing before they go to the next step. And they're quite happy at that level. They don't necessarily want to be millionaires. They don't want to live in a mansion. They don't want to have £1 million. They've got different perspectives. They've got different priorities in life, but you need to communicate to them exactly the same. You've got some people that will pay attention to every single word. There's some people that are already thinking about the first sentence you said before they even listen to the end of that sentence, and they're off building something else, or they've gone on a different tangent. But when you're leading people, you've got to make sure that you're delivering the message, whatever that message may be, in a number of different formats and different people to make sure that you're getting the best out of your team. So you need to have diverse thinking. I can communicate with very different people in different ways, and I pick up very quickly on different type of client avatars or different personality types, possibly because it fascinates me. I've also got a lot of experience of walking into companies and literally rolling my sleeves up, because when you walk into a crisis, you haven't got time to be having a chit chat and having a coffee. Don't get me wrong. I've had those chit chats and coffees in those optimum times with those optimum people, because that is where I get the most of my information. And I understand, because of my experience, how different people respond to different things. There's not a lot of that in the construction industry. It does exist. I have met those people and they're incredible. And to be perfectly honest, the only time I tend to work for clients like that is when they need a second opinion or some independent oversight just to double check what they're doing. So I work with those kind of leaders all the time. And those kind of leaders I tend to have long-term relationships with. And most of them, to be fair, have come from people I've worked with where I've been the main contractor or I've been the client working on behalf of the developer and they've been one of my contractors or subcontractors. And we've worked together that way. And then actually they like the way I work. And even when you've been working for me on another side of the contract, I've always been empowering people all the way through, especially good people, and helping them to help themselves to make sure that the contract goes the way it needs to go. I've remained unbiased and ethical in my position throughout my entire career, way before I was chartered. So a lot of those relationships have gone from me being the client to them being my client because we built that relationship. So the diverse way of thinking is understanding how to deliver the message, get the most out of these people. Women in general have a different way of communicating. Many times I've come onto a site and, as you know, I've got a reputation and I'm the person you call when a construction project is in trouble. So I'll come in and they'll go, yeah, it's just a waste of time. We have all these meetings and it's just a cockfest and it's just a cockfight and it's just this and it's just that. And everyone puffs their chest out and nothing gets done and everyone just is pulling their own direction and we just go round and round in circles. I go, okay, all right, thank you for that opinion. That must be really stressful. That's annoying. I get where you're coming from. But sometimes when it comes to a cockfight, the best person to win is the one without the cock. First of all, that shocks them, because I don't expect that from me. But secondly, it's a different way of thinking. It's a diverse way of thinking. And one of my superpowers is definitely not ADHD or bipolar. One of my superpowers is being able to go into an energy-driven, high-pressured, ego-centric environment where everyone is on a power trip to some extent. When you've got a number of people around the table and they're so frustrated, so fearful, so relentless, had enough and just absolutely totally turned off of the entire project. Each one of them has a fuse lit and it's just about a matter of who explodes first. That's when I come in and that's when I'm like a bomb expert. I diffuse those situations and get each one of those inside. Bringing people together and getting a common source or a common ethos or a common goal and bringing them back and realigning them back with the original goal where they started and reignited that passion where they started the project and everyone was excited is something that I'm really good at. And I don't think that's necessarily because of me. I think it's because I'm female. I do have high standards for myself and anybody else, and I don't suffer fools and I don't take excuses. I am empathetic when I need to be, but I use the right amount of force when necessary, the right amount of support. I will push and I will push people to step out of that comfort zone, but I will never, ever force somebody to do something I will not do myself. And I will never force somebody to do something that I do not think they're capable of, ever. And that goes across the board. That includes work, colleagues, mentorees, clients, my husband, my children, friends, family, my parents. I will never force somebody to do something that I will not do myself. And I've proven this on many occasions and some pretty awful occasions, to be fair, where I've dug in when I didn't expect anybody else to. And often in those situations, it's been when I wasn't particularly respected because I was judged for whatever reason. One situation because I was white, many situations because I've been female, and many situations because at one point I was the boss's daughter. But each one of those situations where I was doubted and judged and in some instances abused, there's no softer way of saying it. When the chips were down, I rolled my sleeves up and I didn't abandon anyone. And I was the first one there and the last one to leave. And one contract, I was the one opening up the bags, looking for the potential dead baby. And I was the first one in. And these are the kind of things that I do. And with every one of those situations, I didn't do it because I wanted respect or I demanded respect. I did it because it was the right thing to do. And in every one of those situations, people respected me for it. The amount of conversations I've had, you can't do this. Don't worry about what I can't do. You've got a problem. What do you need? We need a crane. You're not going to get a crane. Don't worry about me getting a crane. That's my job. I'll get you the crane. Don't roll your eyes at me. Just go and do what you need to do. 7:00 in the morning, they walk in. What's standing there? A crane. That's when I thrive the most. Because that's the challenge. If it can't be done, it's because I've said it can't be done. And I won't give up until I'm telling you it can't be done. And if it can't be done, then as far as I'm concerned, it's not possible. And I don't stop until that's the case. And unfortunately, some of my kids have got that same trait, which can be frustrating. So diverse thinking is not just about DIE, because that's what the term diverse has been associated to. Diverse is about different. It's about change. It's about variety. People are panicking about ESG and social change and social responsibility, sustainability, and a lot of the stuff that's hit the industry that I discussed in last week's podcast. It is coming at us from all angles, but it's already here. It's not something new. Diversity has always been here, and a diverse way of thinking is about leadership. And that's not just leadership in construction, that's leadership as a whole. You need to be able to think differently. So I'm not expecting anyone to go, wow, how can we lead? I only think the way I think. That's where you bring in consultants or other management teams with other management styles. I've worked with a lot of family businesses. That's what I grew up in. I understand the complexities of family businesses, and I understand what happens when it all goes wrong. And I know what it's like to be in the middle of all of that. I also know what happens when it goes right and when people are aligned. And I also understand the differences in how families work. I've worked in a lot of family businesses. I've been drawn to them for whatever reason. I also mentor clients that are part of a second generation or a board of siblings. And I understand the differences. And I see the positives in that, because very often when you've got siblings, you've got the same gene pool, but you have different aspects and different strengths within that gene pool. And actually, they all bring something different to the table. The problem with these kind of companies is the fact that there's sometimes a power struggle. And they're very quick on looking at each other's faults, because that's what siblings do, putting each other down and trying to say, I'm going to do this, and putting themselves forward, because it doesn't matter how old they are. They're still little children fighting for their parents' attention, because that's how they start their relationships, and they just carry on because that's the way it is. And sometimes when you look back at directors of a company that are siblings and look at them as children instead of directors, it makes a lot more sense. You can see the dynamics between them, but then you know how to communicate with them or to deliver what they need or understand what they're trying to communicate to you. When you look at these things, especially boards of siblings or relatives, family relatives, when you establish what their different needs are, sometimes where their traumas are, sometimes where their strengths, their weaknesses are, sometimes their triggers when it comes to each of the siblings. Once you understand those, you can manage the way the communication works, and you can mentor or lead the other parties to work in their zones where they're most effective. What I like to do is get them to see other people in different perspectives and different lights. And when I often focus on the positives of a person and the strengths that other people might not, and I know how to motivate these people, when you start motivating them and communicating with them differently, the way that they change, the way that they operate and the way that they deliver themselves and the way that they act within the business then changes, and it's miraculous and it's really fascinating. The other directors will then start seeing that director slightly differently. And then all of a sudden, they're acting a different way and things just start to shift. And it's very interesting how the dynamics all change and they become more of a unit. It creates a beautiful thing. And a lot of the time, the problems in the business, whether it be the project's gone awry, cash flow is a problem, lack of direction, it's normally because they're working in unison rather than in unity. And so when I bring them together, things start expanding. They're all positive. They're jumping up at work. They're first one at the board meeting instead of rolling in last minute. They've got their prep done. Their sales are up. Their company's growing. It's not doom and gloom. It's every single board meeting or quarterly event. Everything is growing. And that naturally, just because of the way the attitudes that they're working together, it's a beautiful thing. And the company just automatically grows. And these are the kind of different things that you need to look at. Diversity is, who are your client base? Who are your directors? Who are your people? Who are they? How are you going to keep them? There's a lot at the moment about increasing diversity in the workforce in general. There's ESG items in Australia. They're bringing in legislation that, depending on the size of the project, that you have to have a percentage of women. But a bit like a Section 106 over here, it's becoming law that on certain sizes over $1 million, you have to have an X amount of percentage stipulated by the planning or whoever is governing it on site. And that doesn't just mean your admin team where women usually reside. Back from when I started 25, 30 years ago, there are a lot of female architects, structural engineers, particularly M&E engineers, civil engineers, not as many, but you are meeting much more of them. There are many architects, many designers, interior designers that are involved in the construction industry that are female. You are getting more management. You are getting some project managers. The accounts team is often female, although you're still getting a lot of male finance directors. There are a lot of women business owners coming. Some of that is because their dad's company and they've taken over, not necessarily by choice, by birth, but actually thriving in those spaces. And I really love working with contractors that are run by female, especially when they've daughters. There aren't that many women QSs. There's more of them than there were, and some building QSs, but there are more on the professional side, monitors, surveyors, and on the PQS side. But on site, there's not as many of them, and it's still quite rare. But I think increasing the amount of women that are on site, women are better at organising things, curveballs, holding multiple plates. We talk about multitasking all the time, but women are generally better at the organizational side of it, the paperwork side of it. And we call it paperwork, but obviously it's not physical paperwork, but document control is becoming paramount. It's not just a strategy now, it's a preventative measure, because if you don't do it properly, it's going to cost you a serious amount of money. We've touched on all these things, adjudications and payless notice and all the rest of it. Women are much better at organizing that kind of thing. Much better. They have a different skill set. A lot of the mothers in the industry have no choice but to work effectively, because they're running around in the morning to get everybody ready for school, to try and get into the office on time. And there is no hanging around at 6 o'clock. They have to be out the door at 5 because they've got to pick their kids up. And there's so many women in construction still in that space. There's many that aren't, and there's lots of women in construction that don't have children. Every woman in the industry, regardless of their sexual orientation or whether they've got children, I guarantee you will have responsibilities outside of the workplace. Not as many men do. A lot more men are doing that. Men are much more involved in children than they ever have been. Most men. I'm talking averages, and I don't want people to shoot me down because I want to see the bigger picture of the message I'm trying to display here. Is about diversity. It's about changing the way that we're thinking. It's about moving with times. And it's also about not being narrow-minded. Letting women into the industry, but not just writing a policy. Get someone to give you advice on how it is to be a woman. Support them. Allow them to grow. Keep them. It's not just about the way that you write the advert. It's not about writing a policy and putting the onus on the woman to do what she needs to do. One of the things that I bring to the table is the fact that I have had this lived experience. One of the things I talk about every month, women have a difficult week. And you've got that week. And that week is never controlled, because one week is never the same as another week. And it doesn't necessarily work like clockwork. And these things are not great when you're surrounded by men. Now, back in the day when there were portaloos, Jesus Christ, I would try to avoid sight that week as much as I could. When I was starting a new sign 20 years ago, the first thing I would do was find a local cafe or a Marks and Spencer's BP garage, because both of them would have a toilet. If it was a local cafe, I would go in there and say, hey, I'm going to be working at this site for X amount of time. I'm going to be coming here X amount of times a week. I'm asking you if we can do a bit of a deal. Every time I'm here, I'll buy coffees. Every now and again, I'll buy bacon rolls. When I have meetings, would you be open to me having them here? Would I have drinks, lunch, whatever it may be? The only thing is, if you're happy for me to have this arrangement, there may be the odd time that I'm coming to site, don't need a coffee, I might need to use the toilet. Can we make it some form of arrangement? 100%. I've even had people, when I've left the site and I've come in and said goodbye, have a bunch of flowers or a box of chocolates to say thank you because of the business that I've done. That's what I had to do, because I would not set foot in a portaloo. Not in a million years. Never did it, and I have managed to not do it. And then when I go to festivals, I'm like, oh, I've managed to avoid these for 20 years on site. I can't believe I'm going to be beaten by a festival. So when you've had to deal with that, and when you've got your period and you're on site and you're trying to find the toilet and nobody knows where the key is, and it's in somebody's pocket. So by the time you're either desperate for the loo or you're really worried about what's going on down there, you finally get it. The key's always dodgy. The lock's always dodgy. I don't know why. It always is. Get in there. Then all of a sudden, somebody's decided to order 50,000 rolls of toilet roll. So you're clambering over toilet rolls and a mop and a this, and there's something else in the way because the female toilet is always the storage room. Then you finally manage to get to the loo. And then next minute, you walk out the site and you've got to walk around the site as if you're holding a knife or a gram of cocaine. Now, I know what it's like to walk around with a knife or a gram of cocaine, because you've got a Tampax in your pocket and you don't want anyone to see it, because God forbid anyone on a building site understands that you're a human and you're a female and you have periods, because they all freak out about it. Not all of them. A lot of them. You can tell who's got sisters on site on the way they respond to you. And you're walking around with this Tampax or Tampax wrapper or sandwich or whatever it may be, trying to find a bin that you can dispose the wrapper in. It was so stressful. It was so stressful. And that's just a monthly thing that's just pure biology, let alone the conversations that I was ignored. The meetings I went into, and as soon as I walked in the meetings, oh, I'll have a coffee and 2 sugars, love. And I'm like, mine's coffee with 1, thanks, because they assume I'm the tea girl. Or the fact that people were just rude and difficult and just horrible because I was female. I've never made a big deal out of it. I don't know whether that's right or wrong. I would raise it with my team internally. We've got a problem here. And I would just go, what I call the back door. I'll write the emails. You'll just have to send them. Some people would make a deal out of it and wouldn't have it. I have had some really abusive situations and where I've been badly bullied, and I've spoken about it. And actually, there are some incredible men in the industry that have supported me way more than I expected. Not more than I deserve, just more than I expected to. This is the industry I chose. I chose to be in construction. I knew it's male dominated. It's my own fault. Who am I to speak up about it? I had a lot of that for many years. But actually, that's not right. And that's not the way it should be. Some things when it comes to being treated differently just because I'm female, I probably could have changed, but I chose not to. But then I chose not to because I didn't feel safe to change it. But then on the flip side, I've met many business owners as a contractors or developers QS with subcontractors who have respected the fact that I'm female, love the fact that I'm female, and have admitted to me that they will employ female QSs if they have the choice, especially in the QS industry, also in the project management profession. But many of them get that and they understand that, and actually have been overjoyed that I have been female because I have been fair and reasonable. And actually they feel safer with me controlling the purse strings as such as they would do necessarily with a man, because not as many women in the industry will be as ruthless, believe it or not, as the men. Don't get me wrong. I don't pay people that don't deserve to be paid, and I will tell them if they don't deserve to be paid and why they don't deserve to be paid. I've got no issue with that, but I'm not vindictive and I'm always fair and reasonable. Some QSs in the industry will just cut someone's valuation just because they want to make more money or they want to increase the profits of the business for no other reason other than that. And I think that's wrong. This is generally, and probably upset a few people, they are generally men. I've not experienced many women doing that. But also I have battled with women. I've had some incredible relationship with women in construction that I've worked with. I've worked on the opposite side of. And some have been great. Some have been not so great. Some have been over aggressive. But I would just say, listen, don't need to be that aggressive. We're just having a conversation. Sometimes I've been over aggressive. Like, I've not been perfect. Women have a great way of either empowering each other and really empowering each other, or tearing each other down. And there is no one on this earth that can empower a woman more than another woman. And there's no one that can tear her down faster and more harshly than another woman. That's just women in general. And yes, I can say that because I am female. But I also admit the differences and the strengths and the weaknesses. And I have been on site and actively, I'm flashing my eyelashes at you, and even on the phone going, you can't see me, but I'm flashing my eyelashes at you because I'm trying to get them to do something I want. And I'm overly zealous with it, and it's a joke of some sort because I'm asking them for a favor. But on the other hand, they also get my protection when they're being wronged or someone's trying to wrong them. And I'm also there. They get my empathy and they get the whole shebang. It's not just when I feel like it, I'm going to pretend to be a woman because I want you to do something and I want to try and manipulate you. Never manipulation. It's more persuasion in general. Operational leadership and the value of diverse thinking is unquantifiable. We need to look at things in a different way. We are not based on hard work, grit. There are people coming into the industry that haven't worked hard, that have just come in, will buy a business, take over, has an idea, and they are successful. Yes, they can be loose cannons. We have to be prepared for that. They will grow quickly. They may disappear quickly. They may not. But the industry is changing. AI is changing. Software is changing. The youth of today are bringing a different aspect to it. There are more women coming. We need more women. There's more diversity coming. We need it. People are becoming more diverse. The population is changing. We need to keep up with the rest of the world. We need to make sure that we carry on. We fit in the industry. We understand the industry, but also that we're looking at it in a different way and thinking the way the industry needs us to think. Good leadership needs to adapt, the same as anything else. You need to adapt with the industry and you need to think differently. And if you can't think things differently, then you need to employ someone that can.
Michelle, your perspective shows us that diversity isn't just about labels or categories. It's about thinking differently, communicating effectively, and bringing out the best in the people around us. Whether you're leading a team, managing a project, or shaping a business, understanding and embracing diverse ways of thinking can make all the difference. Thank you so much, Michelle.
You are very welcome.
If you found value in today's episode, hit subscribe so you never miss a new release, and share it with someone in the industry who needs to hear it. To learn more, access resources, or find out how Michelle Carr and Construction Alchemy can help you protect your projects, solve problems, and boost your profits, visit constructionalchemy.co.uk. Together, we can change the industry, one project, one company, and one episode at a time. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are based on the personal experiences of Michelle Carr and her guests. They are for general information only and should not be relied upon as professional or legal advice. Always seek your own independent advice before making decisions. Neither Michelle Carr nor Construction Alchemy accepts liability for any loss, damage, or consequences arising from actions taken based on this podcast. Thank you for listening.